Thanks for joining us. Hope
Welcome.
you're having a good day.
Yeah, welcome to our car conversations.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. How important do you think asking question is in your life?
That's a good question. Are you asking me, or are you asking the general people in the world? How important are questions? Okay. Well, for me, the only way I've ever learned anything is through questioning everything, which flies in the face of most things the world wants right now, because we're sort of trained to monkey see, monkey do. And it's getting worse, in my opinion. Like, people really don't question themselves or the world or anything that's going on. Let me rephrase that. I can see people who are wanting to change, authentically change their lives, asking questions. The better the question they ask, the more intense they're willing to change their life. And I don't mean giant, big questions like, what's my purpose in life? That's a bullshit question anyways. But like really deep questions of like, why do I do this? Why am I feeling this? What's actually going on? What am I looking at? These are deep, meaningful conversations that require you to really stop. Because a good question, in my opinion, a good question for yourself will make you stop. And then you have to ponder and digest. And that is really cool, because that's when you learn shit. So, how important are questions for you?
Yeah, they're certainly becoming very important in my ability to create space and clarity. It's like I recognize so much in my life. Yeah, as you said, monkey see, monkey do. You are conditioned and taught there are answers out there. You need to learn how to get those answers, and then you go about that. And the challenging part is if you're just following the script and you go about it and you find that things are not working, the inability to question the script or question how you've been conditioned to make choices is what causes what I feel is so much of the pain and the sense of powerlessness. I know I've experienced it so intensely in my life because I didn't have the self-worth to recognize I have the ability to ask questions, to question authority, to question what I've been taught and whether it's right for me. And you know, and especially now moving into a very new direction, learning to create my own business, learning to create something more meaningful, I recognize that pattern has come back in ways, right? Like kind of watching others and being inspired by others that have created a much more fulfilling, empowering, and a life that not only supports oneself but one's world. And then I think, oh, I need to do it like that. I need to do it like this. I need to like follow what this book is saying without questioning what is my process? What is the process being birthed through me?
And that's really important, because I think that a lot of people do that. They they follow a 1, 2, 3 step program, which, you know how much that annoys the shit out of me. But I, luckily, no matter how hard people around me tried to stop it, I also had a lot of people who encouraged my ability to ask questions. And that's what's gotten me to where I am now, which I love, and I still always love asking questions, always, right? Like, I would not have been able to make it through my dark days if not being able to ask questions. If I had just followed suit, I think I would have gone my mother's route and committed suicide. Like, there's no way. But there was always a question, and I knew that if I asked enough questions, I would find an answer. And never take the, because I said so. Never take that answer. Never. Yeah. That's lazy people's work. When people say because I said so, that's because you're just freaking lazy or you don't know. That drives me up the wall. If you don't know, that's okay. Like, it's okay to admit when you don't know something, because that means there's something to learn, and that's really exciting and cool.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't know something, then there's something for you to explore. And Lord knows there's enough in this world that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, spend some time with yourself, and there's a shit ton you don't know about yourself.
And it's recognizing over time that it can be a very powerful statement, a very powerful choice to not need to know, to say, I don't know. I don't know what life is. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what happens when I die. You know, I don't know how the world's going to change and how I'm going to be affected by it. And now I'm realizing, as I allow myself to just be present with I don't know, then as I relax, then my awareness will lead me to what will be beneficial for me to know, or what I'm curious about, or the next layer that's ready for my awareness to guide me into knowing.
Yeah. There's so much power, like, there's so much power in that statement. Like, it's funny how, like, the world raises us that not knowing an answer means you're a bad person, or that you're not smart enough, you're not that.
Yeah, the school system.
School system,
right?
like, if
Everyone
you, and then if you get it wrong, then you're even worse. But it's funny because the most powerful things you can say in your life at any point is, I don't know, be authentic, and what's the other one that people don't like, that it's the flip coin of it? You know what I'm talking about, right? The statements.
No, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. Is it do uncomfortable things? You need to do uncomfortable.
Yeah, like
you need to be okay.
It's all of that's being uncomfortable, but it's like, it's kind of like the opposite of what they're always teaching us is where our power lies. Like, vulnerable. Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So vulnerability is weakness, but actually that's the strongest thing you can be.
Mm-hmm.
The question, I don't know, like, as saying I don't know, that is the strongest thing you can do and say at any moment. If I don't know, then that leaves the world open to be able to give me answers and to help me and serve me. Where if I say, I know, I've lived it myself, I know what I'm talking about, no one wants to live with that, but we're all running around saying it. But and then I don't know is another powerful tool to that vulnerability part of yourself. Like, you have to be vulnerable to say I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's power in that.
Yeah, because it is tricky when you grow up in an environment, in a family dynamic where your parents taught you or conditioned to you to follow their authority, right? And certain cultures are much more ingrained in that solidity of that pattern, whereas like parents, your elders are your gods or your authority figures, and because that's what they were taught in, so they need to uphold that, and so that you can uphold that when you're old, and on the cycle continues.
Yeah, I'm like really lucky, like really privileged. Like, when people say, oh, white privilege doesn't exist, like, I can look at my life and see exactly where I was. Doesn't mean shit didn't happen to me, but because I'm white and I grow up in Canada, I have a lot more privilege to be able to ask questions, to challenge authority. Not as much as if I were a white man, but I definitely have more than most.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Oh, absolutely. And to deny that would be stupid. You know, I also grew up in a predominantly white community. So I was the bottom rung, but because I knew I was the bottom rung, I fought harder to ask more questions, because I was like, well, I'm not going to fucking get anywhere anyways. I'm just going to get questions. So that's where my fight comes from. But I can still safely ask as many questions as I want.
Yeah.
I have that privilege because of what I look like.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not, another thing that's really lucky with me is I am not a threatening looking person either. I'm not too beautiful. I'm not too ugly. I'm not too thin. I'm not too fat. I'm like just this perfect non-existent being of whiteness that allows me to question. And I use that to my advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where you don't have that at all. Like, you come from a culture that's like the worst at questioning authority.
Yeah, because it's been bred in us for literally thousands of years to not question authority. You are subjects of the state, of the empire, of the government, of the civic leader, and you police each other and you police yourself to the nth degree without ever recognizing why you feel, sometimes so empty, we're so powerless, right?
Yeah, you're not even allowed to ask. You're not even allowed to question what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Like, that was fascinating being with, like, it's taking you till now to be
especially
able to,
as a man.
oh my God, it's even worse for you being an Asian man. Like, you are the bottom of the shit pile for that.
Yeah, so now it's just awareness. It's just been willing to ask questions to allow me to, move in a direction where I get to choose environments where I can have more freedoms to actually ask questions and actually be able to develop, amazing relationships where I can be supported in asking questions and even be inspired and guided and challenged to ask more questions. So, like, I ask you tons of questions
all the time,
every day, pretty much, because I know you have experiences and perspectives, learnings that I haven't experienced. So you have a different awareness, and I'm willing to learn from you, right? So
I love questions.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I really do. I love when people ask me questions. I love when I get to ask questions. I love good questions. And I love when I do know the answer, and I love when I don't know the answer. Like, asking questions sort of gives you more color to your world when you're willing to listen to the answers or behind the answers. Because it's also how I question, I know where people sit in the world by asking certain questions. I'm like, oh, that's how you think. Well, I know now how you move in the world. And is that a person I want to hang out with? Is that a person I can broaden a perspective of? Is that a person I can learn from?
And now I'm realizing more and more when I'm feeling like just really stagnant or challenged, like, I'm, stuck, right? I can now look at my experience and whether I'm being too self-centered, self-focused. And, well, frankly, my coach for the last 20 some odd days or whatnot has challenged me to, every day, ask a stranger, connect with a stranger, and ask a question to see what I may bring out of another, right? A complete stranger or another person. And so, I mean, that has really helped me to realize there's always a choice, to ask a question of another, to see what you can bring forth, to see how that really affects and changes my own experience. I'm planning to do a 30 more straight days so I can get in the habit of being comfortable with asking questions and learning how to do that. And that's been very refreshing for me. Because how often, are we asking, questions in a way that helps bring something fresh, right? Something that you're not expecting, you're not looking for, right?
Yeah, pardon me, yeah. No, that's really important. Like, yeah, we ask really benign and stupid questions. Like,
and part of the thing I now realize is we are truly, the way I see it, all artists in our own way, right? Even the most analytical scientists, mathematicians, they have their own art in the way they cultivate their skills and their intelligence and abilities. And I think about my favorite part about being alive is stories, is storytelling. We are humans, are storytelling machines, right? Machine may not be a good word for that, but we're storytellers. I think about Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all the most influential things we all experience. They have been created by people willing to allow vulnerability and creativity, willing to ask questions, because when an artist is creating, they have no idea what's coming out of them. They don't have a plan. Some have an outline, but their characters often take them in completely unexpected ways one day and another. So it's like, we're not all born to be that kind of an artist, but I believe we are all born to find our own artistry and find our place in the world that engages our creativity and challenges us to the willingness to be vulnerable. Because the way I see it, those have been willing to allow themselves to be vulnerable, they actually find their strength. They actually find their groundedness within themselves. And that helps them to become more free and more themselves and creative.
And that's why you should ask questions.
So, I invite you to take a look at your life, what you've been through. Take a look at the people that have been most influential in your life, and whether they were people who are allowing their curiosity and asking questions, and how that's affected you. And then perhaps look at your own experience and your own willingness to ask questions of yourself, ask questions of the world, ask questions of others. right? We all have this idea of what we want to do, you know, and it's always a combination of conditioning, of influence, of what you're watching on screen, what you're inspired by, and then we all have this idea, oh, I want to do this, and this is a plan, right? And then yes, inevitably somewhere there's a block, right? And it's then willingness to ask a question, like, you know, how do I do this with more ease and more joy, and what's true for me, right? All these type of things. Is there another way?
Yeah. If you're new to the concept of asking questions, because I know a lot of people think they're asking questions, start with something really simple. How am I feeling right now?
Mm-hmm.
And then just be curious with how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You're not looking for answers with these questions. That's really important.
Yeah.
Just ask a question and see what comes out.
Because that's the trick. We have to be aware of our conditioning of, you know, for years we've been in schools taught to ask questions so we can get the right answer, so we can be accepted.
Yeah.
So we can get a good grade.
A good question isn't looking for acceptance. It's looking for space.
Mm-hmm. Just bring awareness. Yep. So then you can allow your own curiosity to open up your awareness to what's really going to be enlightening for you.
There you go.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have
Fair.
any questions of us, feel free to reach out anytime. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good day.